Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Yeah, I'm wearing a Dragon Ball Z hat. I got it recently because my hair... So recently I found a hair cutting place, and I haven't been in a while. It's the first time I went, and then they had to shut down. I found that out the first time I got my hair cut there a while back. And so now I have to find a new haircut place or try to contact one of those ladies and see if they still cut men's hair at their houses or something. It is a nightmare trying to find a new hair cutting person in general because I have terrible hair. It stacks up like a beehive. Anyway, getting back to the video, I'm wearing a hat because my hair is looking pretty atrocious here lately and I'm getting tired of it, so I have to wear a hat a lot. Have a total afro thing going on. And anyway, today we're going to be talking about a show that I've talked about a little bit in the past, maybe in a previous video recently as well. This is the first season out of 4 seasons of a show that I have loved so much in so many ways. This show started in 2016 with this particular season, the first season of the show. It's called Channel Zero. And this is the complete series box, and of course the show came on Sci-Fi. It's canceled now, and it's a shame. It's been canceled since like 2019. And I gotta tell you, I love this show. I think for a show that each season is only 6 episodes long, it's a horror-themed show. It's all based around creepypasta, which one of them is this first season. It's called Cove. It's that one right there. I reviewed the creepypasta from the internet called Cove. It was my first ever creepypasta short horror story that I read off the internet when I was in middle school. Or high school. It was high school. I had a Droid X. And I talked about that when I did the review for the Cove story here on my channel. And I've always loved that story, and I was very interested, because the first time I ever saw this show, I saw the 4th season down here called The Dream Door. That's still my favorite personally. I have not seen season 3 yet. I watched the first 2. You'll have reviews pretty much back to back for the 1st and 2nd season here on the channel right now. The first season, I didn't know what to expect because, again, these are taking creepypasta stories that are like a page or 2 long off the internet and adapting them into these very long stories. All I can say, after watching this first season for the first time, Chris Straub, who wrote the story, Cove, that ended up on the internet as a very famous creepypasta. Chris, you should be so proud of yourself, and so proud of Hollywood for once, for doing something very exceptionally cool with a story that you created. Cove is already a very eerie, atmospheric story that I still love. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite creepypastas, up there with Anansi's Goatman story, I think is what it's called. I love it. I think it's fantastic. It so much very well outdoes things like Slender Man to the very degree that I can't understand why anybody would miss something like this or that story and try to pretend like Slender Man is a better story. It doesn't make any sense to me. But Cove, this season, again, it's 6 episodes long. Every single season of this show is. This show is kind of a riff of American Horror Story in that respect. It kind of wanted to get in on that whole thing of having a whole season, and each season is different compared to the last season, or the other seasons for that matter. They're all their individual own short horror stories for 6 episodes long, and then none of them connect. None of the seasons connect at all from what I can tell so far. And I love it. I think it is so good. Every season feels a little bit different, but they also progressively get darker. I don't know about Butcher's Block, again, that's the 3rd season of the show, but I watched this, and then I immediately jumped into the 2nd season called No End House. I haven't read that story before. I don't know if it's any good, but I watched the 6-episode season, and that was darker than this first season. But Cove as a season, I really love it. It has so many wonderful throwbacks to the old short story from, Chris Straub, and I love it. I think it is such a freaking great season. Again, Dream Door, the 4th season, is still my favorite. I think it's fantastic. This show is not particularly clean. There is some language here and there. There's not really any blood, per se. There's kind of some gore towards the finale of the show, maybe the last couple of episodes out of 6. It's not really a whole lot. But there's some scary things in here. One of the big things this season went with that kind of feels more like an American Horror Story type thing, which for anybody who doesn't know, I'm not a big fan of American Horror Story. I like certain aspects of it. I've not seen all the seasons. I saw the first 3 seasons. I watched a little bit of 4. I saw a lot of Hotel, and then I didn't finish that season for whatever reason. I think I just got caught up with something else I was doing. But I watched all of the 1st and 2nd and 3rd seasons. The 2nd season was just awful. The first season got a lot better, and then the last episode sucked. The third season was really great from beginning to end almost, and then the last episode was a little too rushed. It should have been two more. In my opinion, there should have been one more episode at the end of season 3. But this show has a lot of that, and one of the things that I think feels a little bit too much like that, and I don't think they really messed up too much in the future seasons of really doing this, is having one big monster. You know how in American Horror Story, especially like in the hotel season, for example, you had the man who hid in the bed, right? Like the man that was inside of the mattress of the bed. Or you'd have just this random monster over here. The one season about the circus from American Horror Story where they had the clown, I don't remember what his name is, Chuckles or something. You have things like that show would do. And they always had that one monster that was just weird and bizarre. The first season, it was the gimp suit guy. This one has a man, or a boy or something, made out of teeth. And that costume is a practical effect. It's not like some CGI special effect. Most of this show is practical effects, if not all of it, pretty much. And that suit, that costume, is amazing. I mean, it looks fantastic. I'm very, very impressed with that. Props to whoever made that. The season itself, I really love the concept. I love what they did with Chris Straub's story, Candle Cove, and expanded upon it to a 6-episode, really a 6-hour-long TV show that works so well. It just builds and builds and builds, and the tension builds heavily, and it just gets more and more suspenseful. It's not simplistic at all. It's very complex. I personally think that Channel Zero is one of the most well-filmed TV shows that have been made in a long time, whether it be the directing aspects, the details. There are so many details to this show in every aspect. I would argue that Channel Zero could very well be more detailed than any creepy horror show out there that's ever been made. Maybe not, maybe even possibly compared to Twilight Zone, because there's a lot of little things you'll be having thrown at you out of nowhere, and you find out later on that they're actually not what they looked like before. Just little background things, so many details, dude. It is such a well-crafted, beautifully loved and made show that had so much passion and heart put into it for every single season. You had so many people tied into it. Don Mancini, who was involved with the Child's Play film, was pretty much the creator of Chucky, you know, the little killer doll. If you're a fan of Goosebumps, you probably know about Chucky because he's a lot like Slappy. Slappy might even be like sort of a ripoff of Chucky in some aspect. The 4th season, you have so many great things involved there, and it just got better, in my opinion. That was the best season so far, in my opinion. But again, all of these seasons feel so much different. This feels like more like a mystery type thing, whereas the other seasons really don't. They have their mysterious aspects, but not like this. This season essentially is about a man who has the name Mike Painter. Now, Mike Painter, for anybody who doesn't know, if it sounds familiar, and you've recently read Candle Cove, that's because it's one of the screen names. Because Candle Cove, of course, the short story, is actually a forum, like on the internet, where people discuss things, talking about a show. It was a bunch of adults talking about a show that they had seen when they were kids, like in the 70s or 80s, that petrified them, that was absolutely scary. The show based around these puppet-type things. It was like a pirate-themed show. And I think the first person to respond to the person who posted the question asking if anybody remembered that show, Candle Cove was the title of it, that person that responded first to that original post was a guy named Mike Painter. And that's cool. I like that they had the little reference there. Now, Mike Painter comes back to the town that he lived in. He had kind of like a weird situation that happened right before he came back. He's also a talk show host, or not a talk show host, excuse me. He was on a talk show. He wrote books, wrote a book. I think he's a child psychologist as well. The opening scene of this show, the first ever scene from Channel Zero ever, is genius. It's actually the TV interview of this guy, Mike Painter, with a TV host, and the cameraman thing was really spooky. There's so much stuff that happens in that little nightmare dream sequence thing. It's just bizarre and it's eerie, and I love it. This show is unmatched with the amount of atmosphere that it builds. Everything from the music is just always amazing. Every single season has its own theme, kind of its own theme song, I mean. Like, the music is built around something. Like, the 2nd season has probably my favorite music I've seen so far. The 4th season is very, very, very 80s-like. I love that about that. This season kind of has that kind of almost dreamlike quality to it that I really enjoy as well. Almost in a weird Twin Peaks type way, but not like in the very soap opera-like feel to it. This show is not a soap opera by any means. And again, it just builds and builds and builds. But Mike Painter had a twin brother when he was a kid, and that kid apparently died. At some point, he passed away or was murdered. There's a big rumor, there's a possible rumor about that, because Mike Painter, when he comes back into town, he meets up with a lot of people that he's friends with, people that know him off the TV and have heard about him growing up. They used to go to school with him. They invite him over for dinner. One of them is actually the guy that owns the house they have dinner in. His name is Gary. He's the sheriff of the local police sheriff's office thing. And they're all just sitting down eating, and Mike is talking about that show, Candle Cove, if anybody else had ever seen this. And they also kind of got spun off into this other conversation about how while that show was on for about 2 months in that area where they live, that, number one, only the people their age knew about the show. It's kind of got this weird Nightmare on Elm Street kind of feel to it. That texture adds a lot to this, I think. Really builds that atmosphere, that mystery around this. But those people are all about the same age. They only know about this show because of the rumors that they felt that. None of them really watched it with anybody else except for Mike. He watched it with his brother a couple of times. And as they talk about the show and talk about these memories about like episodes, or a episode possibly, of just the puppets on the show screaming and yelling at the camera just non-stop, they go on to this conversation about how at that time, those 2 months while this show was on TV, 5 children were murdered in their town. And it is just plain out, it's not as simple as it sounds. And it's not complex, like in a David Lynch type way. This feels like if David Lynch made a show with Stanley Kubrick. That's what this show feels like. Channel Zero is so dreamlike and so, again, atmospheric. That's the best word I'd use for this. Detailed is a word I would throw at it again. They did not avoid trying to make this as dense as possible. 6 episodes, and it's one of the most impactful shows I've ever seen in my life. Every single season I've seen so far, I've loved it. It knows how to build tension. It really does. It gets unnerving. My fiance watched the first 3 episodes of this with me, and it was on the 15th of February. It was actually after we had our dinner for our Valentine's Day, because we didn't get to see each other much on the 14th, which is a Friday. And so, when we saw each other that Saturday night, I picked this up in the mail. I got it in my mailbox, and I brought it over, and we watched a little bit of it. She is not a horror fan by any means, but even she got into this. As creepy and eerie as it is, she got sucked into this too, because that mystery that's building about the brothers, what happened to Mike's brother, what happened to those kids that were murdered, what happened with the Candle Cove show. Mike starts seeing things. There's this one scene where he's in his room at nighttime, and you kind of just see him staring off into a corner, and you can't see what he's looking at. It's not like the camera's cutting back and forth between what he's looking at and an empty corner. It's not doing a James Wan type thing, which I love as well. It's just the camera stays on Mike the whole time while he's staring at this, and then you hear like his brother speak up and say his name, you know, with the kid voice and stuff. And then the camera eventually finally cuts over there, and you just see one of the puppets, like the outline of it, standing up in the corner. You don't see its face or anything. You can just tell by the details of this thing that that's what it is. It is one of the most shockingly unnerving things that I've ever seen in my life. I think this season took such a great advantage of these puppet creature things, but it's not like this show is focused on jump scares. That's the biggest thing I want to throw at you. If you have a problem with horror nowadays, with movies specifically, having nothing but jump scares, but then you have something like American Horror Story that disappoints you, kind of like it does with me, because it's not really horror. This is a great example of a show that has maintained what horror actually is in a slow burn fashion, but in the best possible way. The cinematography is killer. I love the look of every single season of the show. It's just really unnerving. It's really tense, and I don't really know what else to say about it. I could not possibly recommend this enough to you, especially if you're somebody like myself who grew up on Goosebumps, who grew up on horror, and you're much older now. I'm 25, turning 26 at the end of this year, and horror is basically dead, honestly. There's not much alive for the horror genre. There are some things I like here and there, but when it comes to something I would recommend to people as sort of an anthology type thing, if you want to call that, if you want to call Channel Zero that, because each season is its own standalone story, I would call it an anthology, and I would recommend it heavily to you. But again, I would recommend this kind of like to a teenage to adult audience, not so much kids. This might petrify kids, frankly. I would argue, too, the ending is very bittersweet. More for the outcome rather than the audience reaction, I would say, because I was shocked about how it went the way it went. and it doesn't really have like a happy ending, you know, and not like in a like everybody dies type of way, like nothing like that, but like it's just plain, again, the building of this show, the building throughout this entire season of just details here and there, little things that you might think went a certain way, and then towards the finale you find out it went completely different. That is the key to the show. That is why Candle Cove is such a great season of Channel Zero. It's what makes Channel Zero fantastic. They knew from the get-go what they wanted to do and why it was fantastic. This show, being 6 episodes long per season, is exactly proof of what I've said over and over again. TV shows like Arrow and Flash, these shows that I loved so much back in the day, before they became absolutely unwatchable, those shows could have taken a lot away from this because they were so busy about trying to have content just piled out there all the time. Same thing with Walking Dead. Walking Dead is one of the best examples of this. The first season of Walking Dead was about 6 or 7 episodes long, I believe, and it was fantastic. They've never touched that quality since because of Frank Darabont being fired, number one, and just completely they cheated him so bad. He got thrown out after the first season. They never met that quality again with that show. Ever. Never again. If you have a shorter season with 6 to 10 episodes, somewhere in there, maybe 10's even stretching it, I would say maybe 8 at maximum. If you would shrink shows down to that, like the Sherlock BBC show, you could do so much with it. So much with it. You could do so much with it that would be so much better than what you get with TV now. Because I get irritated when I see things like everybody freaking out about shows like Scorpion or like CSI, you know, stuff like that. I mean, it's fine if you like it, whatever. But something like this that gets overlooked, it didn't get any marketing at all. I had not heard of this until after the 4th season had ended. As much of a fan of anthologies and Goosebumps and things like Goosebumps as I am, I had never heard of this. This show feels like what Twilight Zone should feel like now. If Twilight Zone ever did a full season of like 5 episodes for one story, this is what it would feel like. This is what it would feel like. Not that this show is as smart as that. It's smartly made. It's intelligently made. But the story doesn't really have like a moral to it or anything like that by the time you get the finale. Maybe you could argue it does, but I don't really think so. It just, Channel Zero being overlooked the way it was is what made me want to make this video for folks, because I really want to get the name out there. I want you guys to check this show out. If you haven't had a chance to check out Channel Zero, you're missing out. It is such a great show. Every single person in every single season that I've watched has been perfectly cast. Not a single person has been miscast. Not a single person has managed to be bad in their acting performance. Now, I don't know about Season 3, like I said, or Season 3. I haven't seen that yet. But Season 1, 2, and 4, it's been impeccable. And I trust that Season 3 will probably be pretty good too. This is just so great. Check it out, guys. If you have not seen Channel Zero Season 1, Candle Cove, or just Channel Zero Candle Cove if you want to call it that, I couldn't recommend it more, possibly, than what I've already called it out to be. It is amazing. This is what TV should be. This is what advantages of TV should be versus making just a straight-up movie. Because if you had taken this first season and condensed it down into a TV, or to a movie, a single movie release, it would not be as special as what this season was. It's constantly filled with shock and just changes and things that happen that just baffle me. And just some of the nightmare fuel in here is just amazing. I think this first season is possibly the weakest when it comes to nightmare, scary imagery, and yet it is probably stronger than anything I've ever seen in American Horror Story. I'm saying that for sure. I guarantee you that. So yeah, this is for you. Please check out Channel Zero. Fantastic show. Doesn't matter where you start. It's always great. I recommend it tremendously. But yeah, you need to start at the beginning of the seasons because you'll get confused. But each season is standalone, so I think you'll love it if you try it out. But anyway, what are your thoughts on Channel Zero Season 1 Candle Cove? What are your thoughts on the old Chris Straub story? Again, props to him or her. I think it's a him. For writing that story and really getting us this amazing show that really got kickstarted because of that story that meant so much to me because it was my first creepypasta I read, like I said. If I had to rate the first season of Channel Zero on a 5-star basis, I would give this a really high 4 out of 5. I loved it. I thought it was just amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. It deserves such a high praise that I can't give to almost anything on TV now. It breaks my heart the fact that this show, as amazing as it was, got canceled, but American Horror Story is on like its 10th season. Or like Walking Dead is on for like its like 10th season or whatever it is. It has that spin-off show, Fear the Walking Dead. I'm not trying to hate on those things, just the fact that they are not as well made as this. They're just not. They're not. They're not as smart. They're not as detailed. They're not as well written. It's a shame. It's such a shame. The kind of character drama you can get with this show versus these shows that have, God, like 10 times the budget what Channel Zero has. It's a shame, man. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Channel Zero? Put them down below. What are your thoughts on my review? I'm sorry for rambling so much. I just wanted to get out there my feelings about how incredible this show is and how much I could not possibly recommend the show enough to you. Again, I will be doing a review for Season 2 as well. I'm going to try not to ramble as much there as I did here, but yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.